Good evening and welcome to the Paranormal Lens podcast, hosted by Jotnick's Paranormal. My name's Chad Thomas, and that guy over there, somewhere there, is Jamie Widener. How you doing, Jamie?
Jen, I'm wonderful. It is Tuesday already. Like, it's so great. The week just flies by. All the other stuff we did doesn't matter anymore. Back to the program. What's
Uh-huh.
going on with you?
Well, it's a busy, emotional week.
That's a nice way to say that. Yes.
It is. There's lots going on with the senior in the family and the high school senior, not the senior, but we've got some
Well,
of the.
maybe there too. Who knows, right?
So yeah, Zoe graduates from high school tomorrow, so
Yep.
we're super excited about that. I think.
Well, we all are. I'm not sure about her.
um, Actually, then we're having some issues with Facebook. So I'm not sure what is going on there. So we may not be streaming to Facebook. We'll see what happens. But anyway, so yeah, we've got that going on. So today was the senior walk at the elementary school, which Steph sent some pictures to us, and that was really nice. Just yeah, lots going on this week. Did get some sad news from my camp family. They're one of the people that we all look up to is in palliative care right now, and that's sort of hard to go through, but it's part of life. And he's a well respected person, and we will miss him when he's not here, but we have fond memories of him. But anyway,
Right.
moving
Sorry
on.
to
What
hear
about you? What's
Well, about the same. It's saying it's an emotional week is a really good point. All these years of getting here to here, and you think about it, you're remiss a little bit, back to your time of doing this too. And, it's like, man, then I get sad because like how many years have gone by since then? So a lot, a
yeah,
whole lot
yeah,
is the answer. But, it is so cool and so exciting at the same time. Because the future's still bright and all in front, and not that it's not for us, anymore, but that moment is just it's one of those moments, and
right.
and there's hopefully many many more to come, but and I know there will be, but right now this is like the biggest accomplishment,
Hmm.
so it's just so exciting, and it's going to be over in a blink tomorrow, so.
Well, I hate to disappoint you, but it's going
Well,
to
that's
take
gonna take
a while.
hours, right? I think 6,000 kids are running in this school, whatever. But geez, everybody got to talk, and
Mhm.
you take
Yeah,
a pillow.
yeah,
But the whole experience is over soon,
uh-huh.
and the,
Yes,
the wrap of it. So it's kind of cool.
yeah.
So yeah, other than that, it's just we've been getting ready for this all weekend. So it's we got
Hmm.
to find the right outfit. We had to do this. We had to do that. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah,
Let's wrap it up. Let's get there tomorrow.
yeah.
I will
So
literally be dropping her off too. So it's like.
yeah,
I know.
I got to drop her off the last full day of school,
Right.
and you get to drop her off the last day of school. So
The
yeah,
last real day of school. Yeah. Yeah.
so
Official day, whatever you call it.
yeah.
That's the cool thing too. Like when you're a senior, you get to like bag out a couple days at the end. That's so fun.
Uh-huh.
You know,
So
they went to Hershey Park on Monday. They had a picnic today. Like
yep. Yep. It's a great time for them to be alive
it's
and
like a
enjoy.
retirement party, right? Kind of.
Yeah,
I don't know.
exactly. So
Not like I'm ever going to retire, but I hear they're fun.
anyway, um, I'm trying to figure out what this issue with Facebook is.
Well, it's good to see Todd and Carmela are with us. Hi guys, good evening.
So
Yeah, thanks for the congratulations for Zoe. We appreciate it.
I'm going to see if I can. I don't know if I can add this back now or not, but um, we'll see what happens. If any Todd and Carmela, if you could jump on the Facebook page and tell everybody to jump on YouTube, that'd be great. We'd appreciate that.
Yeah, unfortunately, we can't get around to that, right?
Anyway, let's jump to what we were talking about for this week,
Sure.
Jamie. So we are going to talk about the Hawaiian Islands a little bit. So, Jamie, have you brushed up on your history of the Hawaiian Islands? Do you know all about them? Like what we're talking about? I had all these worked out, and now I'm going to have a hard time with them. Kauai Island. Are you familiar with that? The history, the folklore.
I had some of this back in the day. As far as the time of the explorers, and I want to say the colonizers is more accurate, I guess.
Uh-huh.
Coming and landing in the islands, and who doesn't like a nice Hawaiian punch? So about the end of that for me. So
Uh-huh.
I'm going to trust everything you tell me is true.
Okay. Well,
I have no reason to doubt you. First of all, so let me say that.
all right. Well, I'm trying to get my screen set up here so I can get everything right. So, from what you said, I'm guessing you haven't heard of Kiki Ola, the Alacoco fish pond, and the Ulupo Hei Iau, right?
No, no,
No. What about the Necker Island structures or the Pa'oku Menehune breakwater at Kuhulalu Bay?
no,
No?
no. Same.
No. Okay. Well,
Apparently, I'm uninformed.
um, well, I can say that until I was researching tonight's topics, I haven't heard of them either. So,
No.
and I'm a little disappointed that I didn't know anything about these places because I visited Ku, I can't remember. I can't believe I'm struggling with this word. Kuali in 2021 and would have enjoyed learning more about these in person.
Sure.
So, what do all these places have in common other than being a tongue twister for non native Hawaiian speakers? Legend has it that these places were all built by the Menehune. Now, before we dig into the Menehune, which are a mythical people who inhabit the island, let's look at these structures. The Kikialu Alou. I this is going to be a lot of fun, and I apologize to anybody from Hawaii who listens to this. I am not trying to butcher your language. um, the Kikialu and the Lika El Coco fish pond are located on the island of Kauai, and Kahula Bay is on the island of Hawaii. Alupo Heu is on Oahu, and the Necker Island structures are on a small uninhabited island in the northwest part of the island chain. So that's what we got going there. Kikiola is also known as the Menehune Ditch, so much easier to pronounce. It's a historic irrigation ditch located near Waimea. Unfortunately, if you visit the site today, not much remains to be seen of the structure. But in 1793, when British explorer Captain George Vancouver visited the aqueduct, it was something to behold. It stood 24 feet high, and the top of it was used as a walkway. There are 120 neatly cut and smoothed basalt stones that remain. Researchers speculate that the structure went on for several miles. In 1924, during modernization, a road was built that covers almost the entire structure. What puzzles archaeologists is that this is the only example of this type of engineering in the Hawaiian Islands. They also believe that this structure predates the 14th century Tahitian migration to Hawaii. While irrigation canals are common, the construction of this one is unique. Irrigation canals were often built to move water from streams and waterfalls in the mountains to ponds in the drier flatlands where terra crops were planted. To prevent erosion, the canals would be lined with lava rocks that were available close to the canal site. When I visited Kauai, we took a tubing trip down a hand dug irrigation canal. It was lined with stone and actually had been tunneled through three large lava structures. And it was amazing, but it was nowhere near what the Menehune Ditch is believed to be. Here's an excerpt from a story in the Hawaii magazine. Legends of Kiki Ola describe how Ola, the son of Chief Kuala Nuipa Ukumoku, ordered the Menehune to build the wall in one night. A large group of Menehune men and women obtained the stones from a quarry 7 miles away and somehow brought them to the location. After its completion, Ola paid the Menehune shrimp per person, which is what they had requested. Sounds like cheap labor to me.
Yeah.
Now, you may ask how they moved that many stones from the quarry to the build site. Some believe that there were enough people that they lined up and passed the stones fire brigade style. No matter how they did it, it seems to me like it was an amazing feat of engineering. In 1928, a plaque was erected to designate the site as a historical landmark of the territory of Hawaii. On November 16th, 1984, it was added to the National Register of Historic Places. So that was pretty amazing. Big stone structure made out of basalt, which is a fairly hard stone, by a primitive people who would not have had many tools. So let's look at the next one. The next structure we're going to talk about is the Alakoko or Menehune fish pond. It is believed to be between 600 to 1,000 years old. This pond is known as a lokokuapa. It is a traditional Hawaiian aquaculture technique. The goal of these ponds was to create a controlled environment for raising and harvesting fish. This typically would have been awa, mullet, and mu, milkfish. The Menehune Pond was constructed to dam part of the Hulia River. The construction of this dam consisted of building a 900-foot lava rock wall on a bend in the river. This converted 6 acres of land to a pond. The ancient engineering was so carefully designed that it allowed water to flow in and out with the tides, but kept the fish from escaping. This allowed the capturing of the fish to feed the ali, or the Hawaiian royalty, and the local community. On the Hawaii Guide website, I found this story about how the pond was commissioned and constructed. Legend states that the walls of the pond were built in one night by a group of Menehune who were commissioned by the king of the Polynesians to build the pond. The Menehune lined up on the hillside and formed a human chain, passing the stones from one down the hillside until they were in place, or passing the stones one by one down the hillside until they were in place. Their fingers and hands were so worn from the work that they were dripping with blood. This is the literal translation of alokoko, ale meaning dripping and koko means blood. Another legend states that the Menehune king agreed to build the pond under the condition that no one else observed the work. The Polynesian king agreed, and work commenced on a cloudy full moon night. Halfway through the night, the clouds parted to reveal the full moon, which shone brightly on the mountains. On the other side of the riverbank, high up on the mountaintop, the son and daughter of the Polynesian king had hidden themselves on the ridge. The Menehune king was infuriated that his people were being spied on while doing their work, and turned the 2 onlookers into stone, where they are still visible today as 2 rock pinnacles sticking up on the ridge line. The Menehune king ordered his men to stop work immediately, which is meant to explain why there is one section of wall that was built using a different type of rock. Other sources say that, like the Menehune ditch, the stone required to build this structure came from several miles away and was passed hand by hand, possibly for 25 miles. This location was added to the National Register of Historic Places in 1973 and was designated as the Hulia National Wildlife Refuge in the same year. You can kayak down the river and see the wall, but the entrance to the pond and its refuge is closed to the public. There are some very beautiful views that make it take amazing photos. All right. There is another fish pond on the island of Maui called the Kalaplepo fish pond. This one, the wall for this pond is actually 1,173 feet long and encloses 3 acres of ocean. The depth averages 3 to 5 feet and works in the same way the riverside pond does. Archaeological dating of pollen taken from the core samples show that this particular pond was built after 1488 and also is believed to be the work of the Menehune. The next structure we're going to talk about is the Alupo Hi'iu, which I stated earlier is on the island of Oahu. Now known as the Alupa Hawaii State Historical Site, it overlooks the Kawaenu Marsh and is sacred within an ancient Hawaiian temple. The site showcases the intersection of spirituality and agriculture. The Ulupo is a significant spiritual site that served as a ceremonial center for Native Hawaiians dedicated to the god Cain. It also played a pivotal role in religious ceremonies and offerings aimed at ensuring agricultural prosperity and community well being. Beyond its spiritual role, it holds agricultural importance. It was strategically positioned to overlook Kawainu Marsh, which was a central point for managing and overseeing the cultivations of the taro fields, which was a staple crop in Hawaiian culture. The construction reflects the meticulous craftsmanship of the early Hawaiians. The lava rocks were carefully stacked without mortar, and it stands as a testament to the engineering skills and the cultural significance attributed to these sacred structures. Legend also associates that this site was built by the Menehune, which gives you an idea how old the site may be. The massiveness and the quantity of the rock carried many miles hints at its cultural importance. Traditional records Tradition records Kualoa more than 10 miles away as one of the sources of these stones. Ulupo Hinaya measures 140 by 180 with walls up to 30 feet in height. Several Oahu chiefs lived at Kailua and probably participated in ceremonies at Ulupo, including Kakuhi Ewa in the 1400s and Kuali in the late 1600s. Kuului fought many battles, and he may have rededicated the Ulupo as a ceremonial place. In 1962, a bronze plaque was installed by the Commission of Historical Sites, and the site is now on the National and Hawaii Register of Historical Places. All right. And somehow I got ahead. The final structure we're going to talk about is the Necker Island structures. This small barren island goes by the local name, I'm going to say this once, I think, Mokuma na Mana, and it's made of basalt and is only 46 acres. But within that acreage are 55 cultural places that have been found. 33 of those are religious structures, and there are 17 shelter caves. 2 sites have unknown functions. The island has very little soil, so it was not suitable for agricultural. So why do we have such a concentration of cultural artifacts here? It is believed that it was a sacred place and used primarily for worship, or that the Menehune were forced to settle here when fleeing Polynesian settlers on Kauai. Items that have been found here are mostly made of stones that in other parts of the islands would have been made of wood. This includes bowls, tools, and even bird snares. The tools that have been found are adze, fish, and squid lures, hammers, and stone awls. These items would have taken more time and more skill to make out of stone. Archaeologists have also found that other items that have astonished them. A series of humanoid figures carved from stones, ranging in size up to 1.5 feet tall. The style and the material differ from any other islands. Today, Kumanamana is listed on the State and National Register of Historic Places. The island is part of the Hawaiian National Wildlife Refuge within the Papahanaumokukoa Marine National Monument. In 2010, it was named as a World Heritage Site. To protect these incredible resources, access to the islands is permitted for scientific, education, or cultural purposes only. Even if you are granted access, the trip is very difficult. It can only be made by boat from neighboring islands. The surf crashing against the basalt makes it for a difficult transfer to shore. It's been described as jumping off a moving elevator, so we probably aren't going to put this on part of our road trip list.
Come on. Nah.
There's one more structure credited to the Menehune, but I'm not going to dig into it. It's called the Pa'oka Menehune Breakwater at Koala Bay, and it is another stone structure that actually made the Koala Bay usable as a safe harbor. All right, so I've talked about 4 or 5 different structures that have been attributed to the Menehune. They all had similar properties. large structures built out of refined stone that was quarried a distance away from the build site. There were also feats of engineering, or it took skilled labor and dedication to construct or manufacture these items in what was believed to be the 1400s. So, who are these people? Some believe that they are dwarves or spirits with miraculous powers, but there may be a more accurate historical explanation. It is believed that the original settlers to Hawaii came before the settlers from Tahiti and the Marquesas. The initial migration may have come from the same general area, but the time frame and exact location is unknown. The verbal history that was handed down tells of stout, dark skinned people who were skilled in construction. They came from Kahiki, which means ancestral homeland. So there's no recording of where this homeland was. They were a subservient class known as the Menehune, which is Mana instead of Mena, because they were believed that they lacked spiritual power or mana. The name over time changed to Menehune. The Menehune had a famous chief named Ola. Works of Ola are still in existence today. Kiki Ola, Spouting of Ola, is the grand aqueduct at Waimea, built of hewn rock. Helao Ola, the Lodge of Ola, is the koa, or the acacia forest of Ola. There, the koa trees were felled and then hewn into canoes. When the Polynesians settled the islands, it is believed that they were more numerous than the Menehune. This pushed them into the forest and other islands. Could this be the beginning of the stories of the elusive creatures that worked at night? In the Book of Hawaiian Legends, William Hyde Rice describes the Menehune as a race of pygmies who were squat, tremendously strong, powerfully built, and very ugly of the face. Typically, it was believed that they were only 2 to 3 feet tall. Is this an actual description, or does it have something to do with the fact that they were outnumbered and considered a smaller group of people, or that they were subservient? There are a lot of things that we have lost in translation over time. One thing that we do know that during an 1820 census of Waihiha Kauai, 65 people identified themselves as Menehune descendants. Over the time, the idea of the Menehune has developed into stories of folklore. I talked about the structures that were built seemingly overnight with materials that needed to be brought from great distances. There are stories of people who watched them work being turned to stone. Much of the folklore also talks about magic abilities that they have. One source talked about how they can control the elements and vanish at will. Some people will tell you that you can find them on moonlit nights, or you will hear their laughter. There's also the feeling of being watched when visiting the structures they built. Of course, there are the typical stories we have seen in other cultures. Don't stay out past dark or the Menehune will get you. Don't piss off with the Menehune or they'll turn you to stone. There are so many stories that go on about the Menehune, but they seem to draw a parallel. Menehune are to Hawaiians what leprechauns are to the Irish. These pint-sized beings reside in banana leaf huts and sustain themselves on pineapple and sugar cane. Their favorite flower is the hibiscus, and they are said to share a special bond with dolphins. Encountering them will bring you good fortune. There are stories of ghostly encounters with Menehune spirits, but with a culture that dates back as far as the Hawaiian Islands, how can we not expect to have encounters with spirits of these people? I was hoping to share a video that I found, but I wasn't able to get permission to do that. But I shared a link to the story on the Facebook page for the site, or for the show tonight. Um, it was told by Hawaiian storyteller Lopaku Kupananu, and he shares his personal experience he had one night. Another video I found where people were sharing their experiences was from the Animal Planet show Finding Bigfoot. One person who shared his experience shared that he was hiking deep in the woods and found a cave. He entered the cave, it had a low ceiling, and he found a bench-like object that had been carved out of stone. He said if he had to guess, he thought it was a home for someone 2.5 to 3 feet tall. Another gentleman talked about a time when he was riding his bicycle on his way to the work at the sugar plantation. This was also deep in a wooded area. As he was riding, he heard two men talking in a language that he had never heard before. The sounds were guttural and had a lot of hard K and clicking sounds. When his bike snapped a twig, the voices stopped. He continued on, and when he mentioned it to the two local men who worked there, they said this happened all the time. When the interviewer asked if it could be someone lost speaking a foreign language, he explained that this was in a secure area. It was it was kapu. You don't come in sugar plantation unless you have unless you have business in the sugar plantation. So the last thing I want to share here is a photo that was captured at a wedding. The woman's name was Piahi Spencer, and she was married in 1988. 6 years later, her niece was looking at the pictures and saw something. Piahi believes that this is a Menehune girl. If you see that there's like an enlarged section there, there's a possible face in it. She thought that the Menehune were a myth until she saw this picture. The village elders told her that this was a girl who was happy and wanted to be in the photo. She also approved of the wedding. So, what do you think? Is it real, photoshopped, or is it pareidolia? It's hard to say. I do think that I'm going to have to make another trip to Hawaii at some point for research. I talked about the plaques that were on the Menehune ditch earlier. The top of the plaque goes into details about what was being preserved. The sentence on the bottom of the plaque shares how the Menehune were respected by the islanders, and it says this: "The shout of the Menehunes at Kauai startles the birds of Oahu." And those are the two separate islands, and they're miles apart. So their thought is that these are strong people who can just control and have so much respect. So I'm going to wrap this up with a short sentiment that I found. The story of the Menehune lingers like a whisper on the wind through the dense Hawaiian forest. These shadowy figures, small in stature but mighty in skill, are more than just legends passed down through generations. For some, they are real, watchers in the dark, builders of ancient wonders, and perhaps even guardians of a forgotten time. Their stone structures still stand in silence: fish ponds, temples, and roads, crafted under the veil of night. No tools, no footprints, no explanation. Just the eerie sense that something or someone was there. Locals speak in hushed tones about sightings in the moonlight, about strange laughter echoing in trees, and about the feeling of being watched when no one else is around. So the next time you find yourself on a quiet trail in the Hawaiian wilderness or standing before an ancient ruin with no clear signs of origin, listen closely. The forest is never truly silent, and maybe, just maybe, the Menehune are still watching from the shadows, curious or cautious about who dares to uncover their secrets. Stay alert, stay respectful, and stay curious. So I'm going to share my sources for tonight, Jamie, while you try to wrap your head around all that and see where we end up. So I'm going to start off with worldhistory.org, Menehune. Quite a few different articles from Hawaii Magazine, Kauai.com, Holo Kua Boat Tours, livingonmaui.com, tpl.org, and there's a couple more Hawaii Magazine ones. So, and our good friends at Atlas Obscure had some things in there as well. So
Always do. They always do.
it would be disappointing if they didn't, right?
Yep.
So now that I worked my way through that,
Yeah.
and I'm sorry, I really practiced those words. I just could not get them out tonight. So.
I understand. Well, before we go too far here, I have to share this comment from Todd and Carmela. So, clapping hands emojis. Chad gets an A+ for pronunciation tonight. Smiley face. Do you guys draw straws? Who gets to do the tongue twister episodes?
I keep finding
No. The answer is no. We do it to ourselves. I agree with that. The sentiment of like there's been a few that I've done, and I'm drawing a total blank on any of them. But like I worked through it for like quite a while before, and then it gets to the moment, and I don't know what it is, but there is something where you
Right.
just kind of go like, "Ugh," like
And you can put the pronunciation out in your
I
document, but it's like
I phoneticize everything and
uh-huh.
hyphen it, and even use alternates, and oh my gosh, I still fumble. So
Mhm.
um, I'm not a linguist. I can say
No,
that. And
definitely not.
yeah. So,
So,
but wow, what a cool topic. And
mhm.
thanks for the comment, Dr. Camille. That
Yeah, I
was it's
appreciate
very
that.
funny actually, and it does seem like it happens.
So
Um, I have questions. Well, I don't know
okay.
if I have comments. I'm not sure which way. But one of the things that I noticed, and I guess it's not just here, because Hawaii is the islands are isolated, right?
Mhm.
They're not mainstream. They're not connected to anything. You have to get there,
Right.
and therefore, what happens there. Anything extraordinary seems to be extraordinary,
Right.
you know. So I can say this though for other places in the world where there has been extraordinary stonework that it's not believed that people of the era and time could have done it. The pyramids in Egypt, all of the Mayan, Incan, and Aztec pyramids.
Mhm.
There are sites in the U.S. as well that are Native American sites the same way. And when you go into Southeast Asia, there are temples that are just unbelievable that shouldn't have been able to be done by people of the time and era with the tools and abilities they're perceived to have, but yet it gets done.
Uh-huh.
And we want to dismiss these tremendous, just wonderful things that these people have created to be something that was shouldn't have happened. Like therefore, it has to be something extra that helped
Right.
them. Aliens built the pyramids. You hear that all the time.
Right.
Um, and it's just a discredit to the uniqueness of the culture of the persons who were there at the time. You
Mhm.
know, so I'm going to say that first. And I noticed something, and I'm going back to near the beginning of the conversation. There was some natural formations on a hill on a ridge
Uh-huh.
that were perceived to be the spies of the Menehune chief or whatnot.
Right.
And they're always there. And that's in folklore. That's a natural way of describing something. And my mind went automatically to the Devil's Tower in Wyoming.
Right.
This is if you ever saw the movie Third Encounter, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, this is where the alien ship comes in. If you haven't seen it, I just spoiled the whole movie for you, by the way. But it was made in 1978, so you're kind of on your own anyway.
Right.
But the idea that this formation in native folklore is that there were Indian braves out hunting, and they came across this giant bear of some mythological piece to this bear. I forget his name. But running away from him, they climbed this mesa, and the gouges that are in the tower are from the bear trying to get them, but he never could.
Right.
So I mean, and it's the idea that explain that that extra way of explaining a natural phenomenon is fantastic because
Mhm.
it's a great story,
Right.
and it's passed down, and this is all oral tradition, so it's all passed down generationally. And who knows? I mean, we always say about whisper down the lane or telephone game, whatever you want to call
Mhm.
it. Like how it may have started over there and where it is today may not be what it is or what it was, but it's still a fantastical thing. And it's a really cool belief that's why that's there.
Right.
And I think that was neat because here we are, a culture that would never have contact with us, in the mainland, and especially folks up in Wyoming, the native tribes there, never would have had that. But yet we're all doing this around the world,
Right.
in the cultures of their time, which is
I
neat.
I found some reference to it. I couldn't find a lot to expand on it. But the Necker Island structures, they said that there were two structures that they didn't know what they did. There's some people that believe that they were stones that are aligned with planetary objects.
Ah, sure.
Again, so think of I'm drawing a blank on it now. The one in England, the Stonehenge,
Stonehenge. Yeah.
and things like that. And like on certain days, they aligned up. And had thing. And so again, it's just there are so many of these things that happen in different places across the world, and the question is why. Like,
Yeah.
how did they get the knowledge? I mean, you can go back to the biblical stories where we had the knowledge to do this, and then it was wiped out because
Right.
we took advantage of it.
Yeah.
So, but again, is another text that is meant to teach lessons, you know.
Yes.
So,
Well, and on this, and back to the stonework too. There have been tribes that are found in the Amazon basin that never have had contact with us. Being the
mhm,
civilized world, for lack of a better way of saying it, who have done just as much detail work with stone and other objects that they shouldn't have had access to.
correct.
And
Yep.
the belief generally is that it's because they didn't have a need for they needed that material, not the natural resources. Like, there's a lot of lumber in the Amazon basin. It's a rainforest,
Right.
but here on the islands, there may not have been as much available. So stone was more prevalent, and they didn't want to take down the trees because they probably needed them for something else.
Right.
So they found a way to make the stonework happen
Right.
instead.
Well,
You
and
know,
especially if they were coming from the Polynesian islands.
right?
Um, if you the first map of Hawaii that I showed, basically the islands leading to what we would consider mainland Hawaii now, um, those islands are all small and barren. Like there's not a lot on them. There's no area for trees or crops or anything like that. So all these tiny islands that they would have hit first, if they were crossing great distances of the sea, would have been stone and rock. So
Mhm.
it's what they would have had to work with, and as they probably the population moved east, then they were getting into things, and they had trees, but they had developed these skills from stone because it's what they had.
Yep.
So it makes a lot of sense if you think of it that way. Because I'm sure this migration didn't happen like, oh, we're leaving Tahiti and we're now in Kauai. like
Yes.
like
Exactly.
it didn't happen like that.
It
It
wasn't a straight line.
it
Yeah.
was
Well, that takes me to, like Easter Island and the Moai.
hmm
The island, it had trees at one point, and now it's basically barren.
hmm
But the statues are there. So again, they would have used the stonework to create
right,
and obviously I think some of this is still to be determined what they're intended for, especially as they're positioned and facing out from the island and so forth.
right,
But there was nothing else to use, and there certainly wasn't anything large enough, like a stone, a boulder, to
right,
create something from. So you made it work. I mean, that's what
mhm,
you used. That's just your medium.
right,
And a lot of it is artistic as well. So even
mhm,
even though they're building walls and other pieces, they're still doing it with some decor to it. It's not just stacking rocks.
right,
There's intentionality to it. So that's craftsmanship.
right. Yeah. It just I don't know. What do you think, Jamie? We're not going to say haunted or not, but paranormal or not? Like,
Well, maybe. I have a thought on, and I just this hit me. I jotted my when I wrote it down real quick.
uh-huh.
But you mentioned this is folklore. And we talk about things that are folklore all the time.
hmm
But it struck me that folklore allows for the expansion of belief. Because it takes you to something that's more fantastic than normalcy,
right,
and it belief that these are that the Menehune are 2 to 3 foot tall individuals. That's not unheard of. There are pygmies in the world. There still are plenty of tribes. In Australia, there's still tribes in the Amazon. Of individuals who are, we'll call them height challenged.
hmm
You know,
right,
but the belief that this tribe was there, a tribe of this nature was there as well. It's not outside the realm of possibility.
right.
That have since either left by migration or have passed out of existence by just bad luck.
Or not necessarily that though, but absorbed into the new culture by intermarriage and
Well,
and
fair.
mating and things like that. There was one discussion about how there was a mass migration out of some of these islands, Kauai and stuff,
Okay.
to Necker Islands to protect the culture.
Okay.
So, and you start again, a lot of that you start digging into stories of, was it again a story just to protect the culture and, prevent
Right.
intermarriage and things like that. One thing I did find is that pre let's call it colonialization,
Mhm.
when the Europeans came into and started bringing their culture, their disease, those things into the Hawaiian Islands, none of this was written down. There were no journals. There were no, um, even sail like even ships that have passed through there. There was no stories of them, of the Menehune. It was only when the white people started settling in that we started getting the stories. So was it something to protect a culture?
Well, we've seen that before.
Hmm.
So, you know, it's not unheard of when colonizers started arriving, and it happened in North America as well. So you're dealing with people who really don't want you to be there, so they give you this story, to hopefully scare you away.
Right.
And unfortunately, these are these are people who want something. So
Right.
they're pretty robust and don't scare easily. They survive 3 months on a ship. I'm going to go as far as I can go.
Uh-huh.
And, even then, the tales didn't get people to stop. I mean, it might have intrigued more, activity and engagement. Um,
Uh-huh.
and that's slightly disappointing, I guess. But um, and I'm not second guessing history or judging history, although I guess I am in my mind. I am, because terrible things happen to these people. Their
Right.
cultures, and so many things were destroyed by what we'll call progress. Um,
Right.
it's difficult sometimes
Right.
to understand all of how much, because you can't see that much of it
Right.
anymore. So much of it
Well,
has been assimilated
right.
into what we are now. That there's these tales that exist, and I love the fact that this is oral history.
Hmm.
Because it's, again, we'll go with folklore, and how many times we have had stories that were that, and we ask the question, paranormal or not. It makes it tougher because it is a tale. There's
Right.
no evidence. But at some point you got to suspend belief,
Right.
of physical things, and just take it on trust. And I
Yep.
want to believe, to answer your question, on that, to step back a second, I want to believe that yes, this is entirely possible.
Hmm.
And I want to believe that there are still Menehune in the jungles and the crevices of the country, and the country land that they're in, that are still there. It's not unlike the Hold a Folk
Right.
episode. I want to believe that they're there. Still working their magic, pun
Right.
intended or not. I'm not sure, uh, but just I want to believe that. But I still, if these things exist, there should be some evidence by now too.
Right.
Something,
What?
something.
Not just one blurry picture from a
Yeah,
wedding that
a
nobody
pareidolia,
recognizes.
a probable pareidolia picture,
Right.
or a bench found in a cave.
Right.
Well, that could be anything.
Yeah. No.
Could be a hangout for kids. Somebody lived nearby.
Hmm.
Gosh knows what, but there should be some bones. There should be some like sense of what civilization is for us. Some campsite, something.
Right.
I don't know. I'm
Yeah.
stretching this, but
Yeah. But we haven't found Bigfoot either. But we found proof that there may be a Bigfoot. It's one.
yeah. Well, again, it's what you want to believe, and that's cool. That's the fun part of this.
Mhm.
Because you and I could have totally uniquely different opinions, and neither of us are wrong,
Right.
because there isn't anything to say we either of us are.
Right. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting one.
Yeah,
Do I think that they were built overnight? No, I don't think
probably
so.
not. But it's a great story,
Right.
right? And again, that's the part of it that's really cool.
Yeah. But you talked about how progress, it's a shame that progress destroyed things like the road. I mean, it was a horse path originally that was built over this aqueduct, but then a road was just built and right over top of it, just because that's where that road needed to be.
Yep.
So, we it has taken us a long time and it's taken us a long time to realize the importance of cultural heritage, in preserving that.
Yep.
And sometimes we forget, like remodeling houses, like it's like, oh well, we'll just board that over. Well, at some point that may be important to somebody, so you never know.
Well, the ghost will let you know if it's important or not.
This is true. So
The spirits of the house, as we'll call
yeah.
it.
So anyway, that's what I got. It was a fun one to do.
Yeah, it really was. Thank you. And tongue twisting aside,
Mhm.
it was really cool too to hear. This is a culture where you don't know
Right.
anything about it until you get to invest in it. And I agree with you. Like I've been places around the country. I've traveled a lot with a past career every week, and not as when you're working and you don't have time to invest in the
Mhm.
stuff that's around you. And there's plenty of places I wish I would have spent more time or could have spent more time, but when 12-hour days happen, you don't have
Right.
much to do more with. But if there was ever that chance to go back and retrace all that, I would be all in.
Mhm.
I'm in for Hawaii whenever you are. We'll do a research trip.
Well, so are Todd and Carmela.
Yeah, there it is, right? Yeah, so they say, so when is the road trip via airplane to Hawaii to do more research on the Menehune? May have missed it in Chad's talk, but if it's just folklore, who the heck came up with it and started it? There you go.
Yeah, that's answer that question, and you can answer folklore all across the world, I bet.
Absolutely.
So, but yeah, it is cool. It's something we will never know until that day we do know. You know. So
Say one more time.
no.
Fine, fine.
All right. Well, should we move on, Jamie?
Of course, no problem.
All right.
All right, so upcoming episodes next week, I am going to explore the Brushy Mountain State Penitentiary.
Can
Week
we
after,
can
yep.
we put some tongue twisters in that just for the fun of
I
it?
hope not. I hope not. I don't think there will be many.
All right.
But the week after, on June 17th, Chad's going to explore the hauntings of his childhood home. And that'll tie nicely into the June 24th episode of Gettysburg, as Chad's home is 9 miles south or so of
Seven
Gettysburg.
seven
Seven,
miles.
7 miles, even closer.
Yep.
So there's a lot of history going through the area there. July 1st, we're going to do a season 2 wrap up. Can you believe it's the end of the season already, Chad? Holy cow.
Yep.
And we're going to take a week off because it's summer and Chad's going on vacation. Well, not technically vacation. He's going to volunteer at his camp, which I call vacation just because it sounds like one. But he's going to be busy, very busy all week. And I don't know how to make any of this stuff work. So, and then we're going to have a special episode. We're going to do something special on the 15th when we come back, but it won't necessarily be us. And that's very confusing. I know. I don't think we know how to say what we're doing quite yet, but it's going to be uniquely different than
Hmm.
anything you've seen from us before. It's a collaboration
Hmm.
evening. So more details on that coming up in the next couple weeks.
Yep. Todd and Carmela won at least one or two tongue twisters.
I'll see what I can do. I'll have my people look into it. All right. And then coming up for opportunities, the Haunted Crescent Horror and Paracon event is coming up on June 28th. Out at Crescent, Haunted Crescent in Mid-State. So we're going to be there as a team. Chad and I believe some others from Jot Next Paranormal will be there for the day. We'll have some stuff to share and just kind of grant some awareness about the podcast and what our team does, repping our home at Boob's Brewery in Mount Joy, PA as well.
Hmm.
That whole day is filled with cool stuff. So if you're anywhere nearby, or even if you're not, plan for it. You got a couple weeks to figure out how to get there. And there is an evening investigation of the Crescent site as well, which is a massive, sprawling location with all
Hmm.
kinds of cool stuff. So come for the day, stay for the investigation.
Yep. It's not on our list of things that we're doing, Jamie, but I got invited to the Das House thing, which is the week before that.
The 21st, yes, yes,
So,
I'm aware.
so
That's
if
the
you,
Creep It Real event.
yeah, if you would, and we talked to Shauna, I believe,
Mhm.
from the
Yep.
Das House a couple weeks ago. Great person. I'd love to go. I don't think I can make it work, but if you can go out and see Shauna.
Yeah, it's on my calendar actually, so I'm going to try.
Good.
Okay.
So,
All right, let's slide over one more. I got this. All
okay.
right, so nope, I can't seem to get that one right. Okay, back it up. There we go. So stuff for us with Jotnick's Paranormal. Again, coming up on June 28th, we'll be at Haunted Crescent Sanatorium and the prison for their horror and Paracon. On the 26th of July, it's a little ways off actually, but we have another public investigation at Booby's Brewery, same on August 16th, September 27th, October 11th, and October 18th. Tickets are actually moving for these events already. So
Hmm.
we always say don't wait till the last minute because they unfortunately do sell out and we are limited on capacity. But if you're at all in the Mount Joy, PA area, any of these dates, you're welcome to come investigate with us. It's always an exciting, fun time. And if you've never done it before, we'll teach you how. That's
Yep.
what we do. All right. And finally, to wrap up on all of us, there's the social media stuff, but we can find us on, you found us here tonight, at least on YouTube, because unfortunately we had a challenge with Facebook, and we apologize for those who normally would try to find us there. But we will be on the streaming services of Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Audible, and so forth tomorrow, and a few others. I'm sure I'm missing
Hmm.
something there. But we have a Facebook page for the team. We have a TikTok and Instagram, of course, YouTube, where most of you are finding us right now. And then also there is a link tree for all of that good stuff. And that font is way too small for me to read, Chad. So I'm sorry, I'm not going to.
It's linktr.ee and then backslash paranormal lens.
Paranormal Lens, perfect. And then, of course, with us, if you have an episode you'd like to see us do or something us to cover for you, you can always email us at paranormallenspodcast@gmail.com. We will both get that now. Thank you, Chad. And
Hmm.
we're always interested in doing listener submissions. This was one of them tonight with Menehune.
Hmm.
We have a few others coming up later, later being in season 3, a couple
Wait,
weeks out.
season three? We were
Season-
we were renewed.
yeah, well, we ruined it ourselves, so
Okay.
no one said no yet. So let's go. Um, but it's our pleasure to tackle the topics that you're interested in hearing. Just let us know.
Yep.
That's what we do. So,
Yep.
of course, we're going to find our own topics too. So it's thanks for coming along for the ride and making this all fun for us to do. We appreciate it. 2 seasons already. Holy cow!
Yep.
I'll be a little more misty eyed when we get to the end, the next couple episodes, I guess. But
Yep.
which was also, speaking of that, when we get to the wrap up, we're asking folks to give us a short list of your favorite episodes from the season, some things to think through and talk about. Chad, your homework and mine as well is to come up with maybe 5 or so of
Hmm.
your favorite episodes, and let's go back to season 1 if we want to. I guess. I
Yeah.
mean, really, there's no
Nope.
limit.
Yep.
Anything
So.
we've covered. There's like 105 episodes out there now, so there's plenty to choose from.
Hmm.
Um,
I think I'm gonna have to say Menehune is one. That's pretty high up the list for me. I enjoyed that one, even though I
definitely.
couldn't say one of the words correctly at all. But
But, it's funny how that works. Like they're all my favorites. I really mean that. I've enjoyed every one of these. But it always seems to me like the last one we did was my favorite one because it's the freshest one. It's the
right,
one right to mind anyway. Um, but it's easy. But you can't pick a favorite because they're like your kids. You're not allowed to do that out loud.
right, yep. So
Well, as always, thanks everybody for tuning in. Whether you caught us tonight here on the live broadcast, you're going to catch up to us later on the streaming services. Again, leave us a comment. Hopefully, if you, whatever application you're on, if there's a way to leave a review, please do leave some stars. We hope we earn 5, but I understand if it's something less, whatever it may be. Let us know. It helps us understand how we're doing, what we're up to. For you guys are catching from us. So, and we just love the feedback. We appreciate it. It's all good. It's all good stuff.
so all right.
All right. So next week, Brushy Mountain
Yep.
and a tongue twister, maybe or two. Who knows?
So
And thanks
all
again
right.
for tonight. So we'll see
Yep.
y'all soon.
Yep. All right. Good night, everybody. Have a great week, and we'll talk to you soon. All right.